So I'm just going to talk for the first 5 or 10 minutes about the history of the program and its goals and why we continue to do it and what some changes or revisions have been made. So many of you will remember, as Jane does, that Wild About the Season, which is the December first Sunday, has been in existence as long as the museum has. So that has its entire life is commensurate with the museum's existence. Harvest on the Hill, which is what we call the November first Sunday, is been around since 2001. So it's a much newer event, comparatively speaking, and its addition as a first Sunday, the intention of it explicitly was to be a thank you to the community in the slow off-season. And many of you will remember that it was Cindy Jacobson's idea to do Harvest on the Hill. So that one is not quite, how many years old is it? 14 years old. Then and then you'll also remember that we had a separate program called the Wianco Concert Series that was happening sort of parallel, in tandem with, at the time, these two formal programmatic first Sundays of programs in November, December. And that concert series would happen on Sunday afternoons, and it had a very dedicated sponsor. And in 2010, when Jane and I got managing of the first Sundays sort of given to us, it has moved around in its management, right? So Wendy had it in events for a while, then it moved to education for a while, and then it moved to programs and events when the programs and events department was created. So Jane and I thought, well, this seems like too much work, too much effort to be going into have the first Sundays program with November and December, these huge events, right? Upward of 1,000 people would be here on either November or December. And then these, sort of well-attended, but not so much dedicated crowd for the concert series, but not that well-attended. So we recommended in 2010 to conflate the two and get rid of that concert series and maybe increase programming for our first Sundays. So after that consolidation, then when it was in the education department, started adding more programming. And the goal is community building, primarily focused on local families. Hence the reasoning to do it in the fall and the winter. Right? We have offered a few first Sundays with formal programming in other parts of the year, and have found that it's not that we're not serving our purpose, which is local community building. Right? We're doing programming in the summer for tourists the few times that we were doing it. So local audience, making sure the community feels familiar with any changes that we've made to the exhibits and what's new and what's going on up here. Free admission, you'll notice on our website and on the flyers that are going out, free admission for Teton County residents. Sometimes we say area locals, but that's what we mean. The galleries are open. Refreshments, small bits of refreshments are served, and an activity or an art-making component is offered. Sometimes we include music, again, in keeping with that concert series that did have a dedicated audience. We want to offer music whenever we can as well. So that's it, the purpose and goal of the programming is to really connect to our local families. But Jane and I were visiting about this yesterday as well. That's an audience for which we already do a tremendous amount. So again, we have scaled back. For those of you who've been here for a long time, it might feel like we have scaled back on what we've offered. In the past, we gave away t-shirts, we had a bunch more food, we had multiple activities, right? And again, with the capacity that we have, our intended audience, and in tandem with everything else that the curatorial department and the education department and the programs and events department is already doing, we are offering formal programming November through March, serving that audience, connected explicitly to the exhibits that are on view. but also really trying to not add to what we've already created, right? We will have music. This weekend we have a local woman who plays banjo and guitar here in the afternoon. In December we'll have the Cathedral Voices. So whenever we can and our budget allows and we've got musicians around, we will include that. We will have some light refreshments, of course, to encourage people to come, and work with the education department to have an activity that kids and families might like to do. But we also really, really strongly want people in the galleries participating in the amazing interactive interpretive components that the education and exhibits team and department have already designed completely in sync with the exhibits. All right, so that it is not just an event that's happening in the lobby, that's a one-off for these families, right? We want them to know what's in the galleries and to participate in the really cool stuff that Jane and Carrie and Grace have provided in those galleries. So a little bit less of an emphasis on this big production and free stuff and some super special activity to really, really support the hard work that's being done by the staff here all the time in connection to the exhibits. Sponsors, we have Wells Fargo, Jan and Larry Finch, and Charlotte Stifel. So it's a well-funded, well-sponsored, well-loved program and event by those sponsors as well. So, anything else, Jane? Can I forget? Any history of it?
I would add that we've also experimented with different collaborations. So some of our biggest events in the prior fiscal year were actually a collaboration with the Cougar Fund. So March exceeded attendance at November and December, and that was unexpected. So we're surprised at what intrigues the community and what role the weather plays, but the kids just loved making those plaster paw prints of the cougar. We had to run out and buy more plaster because we had 500 and some people. So it's big, even though we're not attracting the size crowds over the history of the event. We're still getting over 500 people. We had 500 plus at Harvest on the Hill last year, so November 1st will be big. We anticipate, depending again on the weather and how attractive our programming is for these families. So we're also experimenting with, for example, we did the Festival of Light the past 2 Februaries. This year, upcoming in February, we're going to partner with another organization, and I assume the Festival of Light organizers will choose a different location for the work that they're doing. So looking for those strategic partnerships. Right now I'm communicating with several Grand Teton Music Festival professional musicians about January, because we've had this opportunity to collaborate. I think, Martha, you got to come and hear the horn player, Gail Williams, the French horn, found us and said, could I please come and practice? And could my pianist, would you roll your wonderful grand piano out for me? And I'd love to try the acoustics in this space. So out of that, hopefully we'll grow another program idea that could help with First Sundays. So we're still looking to honor the memory of the Wianco family, as well as meet the needs of Jan and Larry Finch, who may very well be here come January, and they're one of the funders, and that whole connection with professional music is part of what I think attracts them to continue to support us. The Wells Fargo staff, interestingly, are more interested in the mixed media as a place to volunteer their time than they are commuting back up from Star Valley on Sundays for First Sundays. So even though they're getting they like the family outreach and the funding piece, we're working really hard to recruit that younger demographic who are working at the bank, and so we're getting both and. We're getting funding and we're getting volunteers helping at mixed media. So those couple of things just occurred to me, and I learned a few things just listening to Amy right now. So that's wonderful. Let me pass this out. This is a customer service handout that Maggie Davis and Andre Dean worked on together. Maggie's done several customer service trainings, and so the two of them condensed this down to what they thought were the salient points. So we thought we would just talk through this. So yesterday I had the experience of a customer who was not happy that the King Gallery was closed. So one of the ways that I attempted to overcome and achieve some of these goals was to offer him the Western Visions price list. So we're disassembling the show in the King Gallery. All of the pieces that haven't sold are either being returned to the artists or the galleries that they designate. And we were in the midst of moving boxes back and forth. So it didn't work with this particular individual. He was still pretty grumpy about it, but hopefully he'll at least remember that we offered him this nice little catalog. And he was busy buying jewelry in the museum shop, so we didn't lose a sale. We, hopefully we'll achieve this bottom line here that we want to build lifetime supporters. So, of course, hoping that our visitors are going to be gracious is always a wonderful expectation, and sometimes they are, and many times they are. The fact that we are serving others is a privilege, not an obligation, and that you're here because you want to be. And of course, we all try very hard to be as respectful. I know you all do, and staff certainly does as well. Why people leave when they do, based on research, 10% leave due to an unrelated reason, 10% like other options better, 10% were not satisfied with what the museum had to offer, 65% did not like how they were treated when they first walked in the door. We have 7 seconds to make an impression, and we are all directors of first impressions. Interestingly, if someone has a good experience, they will most likely not tell anyone. And if someone has a bad experience, they tell an average of 13 people. Or they go on social media and hundreds of their friends hear about the bad impressions. So again, that's all based on research. If you resolve a problem for your visitor on the spot, 70% will remain your visitor and return. And I think that if we ask ourselves this next question, would you want to interact with you? And I see how wonderful you all are with the visitors, so I know that you're doing this already, that you're living this top 10 golden nuggets of customer service. Of course, we don't always know customers by their first name. I know that our software at the front desk is prohibitive in terms of helping us with knowing and identifying the customer who's a member and wants, expects to be recognized when they walk in. Maybe eventually we will have the ability to have a photo of all of our members. I don't know that that's ever going to happen. So knowing your customer by their first name, great idea. How do we implement that in our given circumstances? I'm not sure that I know how achievable that one is. Diane, you're working the front desk. I'm sure that you start to get to know some of these names and that these are repeat customers.
But at first it was blundering with people who were trustees, and because I was new to the community and didn't really know people, so I have in a little folder the picture list of the
Trustees.
board of directors and the
So that's a great
trustees.
start. That's a great start. If we have photos of our trustees and photos of, our next ambassadors and president's council and, who knows what will be next, maybe Rungus members. So it's a great place to start. So thank you for that example. I thought point number 2 was really interesting. Listen twice as much as you talk. I know that's hard because we all know so much more about the collection, and many, many times the visitor will be asking a lot of questions, and so it's fun to be able to share what we know. 3, always tell the truth. 4, never argue with a visitor or event attendee. 5, under promise, over perform. 6, follow up, follow up, follow up. And that's, I don't know how much of that activity falls on the volunteer shoulders, but certainly with staff, we work very hard. If a customer asks us for, these documents that they did or did not get, we get that in the mail and get that out to them. And we may not be able to sell another piece of art in this remaining week, but we might be able to attract another visitor for Western Visions next year with this kind of activity, trying to help follow up. Be thankful for your customers who complained, for you still have the opportunity to make them happy. Very interesting perspective on great customer service. Enthusiasm, very important. I know I sometimes am overly enthusiastic. So I've been told I have a tendency to oversell everything. So, I have to rein that one in. And 9, be thankful for every customer every time. And 10, the golden rule, do to others what you would have them do to you. Remember, the visitors came here, not other establishments, so let's make them life visitors every day. So I thought that was a lovely little piece. I thank Maggie when you see her. She's not here today, but when you see her, let her know how much we appreciated her work on this document. I think it's helpful. And I'd be happy to answer questions or to take this to specifics about First Sundays. So this was a general discussion, but I think one of the important things that happen at First Sundays is we have people actually greeting, which is helpful. As Amy pointed out, the priority is really engaging in the galleries. And so I don't know how high on the priority list the critter cases are for people, but that was one of the tools that I know I have used over the past couple of years that I've been working with the First Sundays families as they come in. The kids are often, running right through to the Children's Discovery Center, eager to show mom and dad what they already want to play with. We know, for example, that families, as soon as the doors open at 11, the families will begin showing up. So no matter what time we publish, the activity, the special activity that's scheduled generally in the Johnston Hall, if it's 11:30 or noon, they're going to start showing up at 11:15. So we've just decided to cave to that and just be ready for 11 o'clock when the doors open. And that way we can sort of gently ease into the crowds, and it's really fun to see the numbers of engaged youth with their families at those activity tables in the front lobbies. So with that, unless somebody has a question or a suggestion or any ideas you want to share, I'll turn it over to education.
I have a question. So the statistics about why people leave, was that specific to our museum?
No,
or just in general?
no, general.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Well, it's interesting, I think, if somebody is unhappy about one place that they can't get into, because we've all had that at every museum we've gone to. And it means that you're moving along. You're not just doing the same thing you did last year and the year before and the year before, you're moving. And so, you can be, if they're grumpy about one place, I guess you have to be nice.
And frankly, that's a great question, Jane, about where did this data come from? Because if it's the airline industry and the hotel industry and, here we are, people come to us because they want to be here, they want to come for lunch. I bet our statistics are much better than this snapshot.
Well, I think our front desk people do a really good job of
Yes.
welcoming people as soon as they come in the door.
I do think it's really, really important because of the audience for Sundays that the key thing about if they've had a positive experience, they're probably not going to share it. But if they have a negative experience, they for sure will. So for us to really, really, really pay attention to the fact that this audience is the audience that might tell their relatives to come back at the holidays, right? Or when someone on the street asks them, well, what should we do in Jackson Hole? That it might be on their minds to send them here. So this audience in some ways is are a really, really important, fragile audience for us to continue. That the kids have been here to work with Grace and Jane and Carrie. And so to hone in on that, oh, you're in 2nd grade. Oh, I bet you've come up here to do this other program. Go show your mom and dad the paintings that you talked about then. That kind of engagement with the local audience is possible on First Sundays and almost no other time, because the local audience doesn't come up here on a regular basis just on a Thursday afternoon with their kids. Some of the young ones come for mixed media, but they don't come for First Sundays, right? So this audience is really unique and really important for our local community engagement and the attitude that people have about us in town, at church, at school, in their neighborhoods or whatever. These are the times that we can really make a difference with that demographic.
Those are great points, Max. Thank you.
Great. Unless anyone has any other questions, we can move into the galleries and take a look at some of the interactive activities that are in there.
And then after,
The reason we're all out here is to just kind of go over with everyone what's available in the galleries right now, besides obviously, the beautiful artwork. But sometimes when families are here, it helps to have kind of, focused, engaged activities for them to work with. So we just kind of wanted to go through and highlight a few of the interactive things that are in the galleries right now, so that when you're out of First Sundays, or really anytime you're here, you can help help facilitate our guests using these items that the museum has developed. So in our newest exhibition, Monarchs of the Plains, it's a large exhibit, 3 galleries. And I should note too that in most of our exhibition trainings, we try to address what interactives are available, but sometimes in the interest of time, we don't get a very focused thing. So please just come speak with myself, Jane, or Grace, or maybe some other staff members too. But we can certainly help you if you want a more detailed understanding of any of the activities. So in this exhibition here, we do have some kind of, our one fun tactile thing is over in the other room there. We have a buffalo robe out. People are welcome to sit on that, play with that. It's a nice touch. There's also some tools that are made from bison pieces that aren't necessarily available for folks to touch right now. We don't just unlock the case for security reasons, but that can be a really nice thing to kind of for the families to look at and enjoy together. In this space, we have a little more going on. So on this wall over here, we have a timeline that Curatorial and Education partnered to put together. While this might not be maybe like the most ideal activity for the really little ones, certainly there's a lot of information up there, and we definitely encourage people to use it if they want a deeper understanding of the kind of arc of history that goes into this exhibit. A great example of a really family-friendly activity is our bison mask table. So Grace kind of spearheaded this effort, and it's been a lot of fun. As you can see, our masks are flying off the shelves. We've partnered with local artist Walt Gerald, who some of you may also know as Carter's husband, who just started Wild Iris Press. So this is an image that he produced for a Jackson Hole coloring book, and he's allowed us to repurpose it for visitors to kind of color and enjoy. This activity is also linked to a sort of bison awareness campaign, which may or may not actually be going under now, but in either case, so we have some information about how you can, how folks can share their creations on social media and kind of raise awareness about bison conservation. We also have a few different resources in here, again, just for different types of learners to engage with the exhibit. So for anyone who wants to know what the heck the Great Plains is, we have a map here that can help kind of demystify that for you a bit. Adam also put together a really nice Monarchs of the Plains species guide. So this could be a really fun activity for families, even with young kids. I mean, there's obviously a lot of text on there, but what's also on there are little thumbnails, and every thumbnail represents an image that's in this exhibit. So it could be kind of a fun, like, seek and find game. And there's also some really interesting facts about all of the Great Plains species. So again, especially for parents that are really looking to kind of create some fun for their families, that could be a really nice tool that they could use. Additionally, we have these laminates here, which help to tell the story of the interdependence of the prairie dog, the black-footed ferret, and the bison in this habitat. So we have some nice, again, fun facts, did you knows, a little bit of historical information. Again, for locals, some of this might be common knowledge, but don't hesitate to let people know that we have these resources available. And it's just a really great opportunity to have some tools to support families engaging with the collection and maybe learning something new that they didn't know when they walked in the door. Does anyone have any questions about some of the kind of resources that are in this exhibition?
So on First Sundays, will you have volunteers in this gallery, in each gallery, or how do you do the sign-ups?
That's a great question. So on the sign-up, what we've been doing for a little while now is we've been asking for a position called a gallery guide, and what that person's role is, we don't necessarily say you have to stay in this space the whole time. We just suggest, hey, since Monarchs of the Plains is the newest exhibit, please, maybe float around Monarchs of the Plains and other spaces as well. But spend some time in this gallery and kind of engage people with the art, or, alternatively, you can also engage them with some of the other resources.
So you have a gallery guide. What else do you have?
We have gallery guides. We have greeters, and greeters are usually, stationed up at the top, help get people down to admissions. Even if they're locals, they still need to check in at the front desk. And then we also have our activity assistants, folks who are in Johnston Hall helping families engage with the activity that's been developed specifically for that event. We also have a setup slot this time around, so if you want to help move some tables, we could use the help. But generally gallery guide, greeter, and art activity assistant.
And again, that greeter position is supremely valuable with this local audience to say, because you've heard the locals say, oh yeah, I've been to the museum. And it's static, or they have this sense that they've been there and it's nothing new. So it's knowledge of the fact that there's going to be another new exhibit in the next couple of weeks, in early November, that the next First Sunday is December 6th, right? Like anything that you feel like you can arm yourself with as far as knowledge is to help that local audience feel like, oh, it is worth coming back again in a month because there's going to be a different exhibit out that I won't have seen yet. That kind of stuff is just
Or next
really
week,
valuable.
Wednesday, you have a preschooler, do you know about Fables
Right,
Foundation?
exactly.
Yeah, that's
Any
great.
and all of the programs, that you can help them know that we do a lot for our local community, and that even if they feel like they've seen the Rungus Gallery 1,000 times, there's going to be something new that they haven't seen yet.
This is gonna be real popular too.
Yeah,
Yes.
we had a
Tons of kids
serious
in here.
mask making session yesterday, so we're ready.
So
We
you
have
need-
tons of extra masks
you
ready
need,
for this, so.
Probably a couple people in here at least.
So what are the little photos on the little metal
Yes, so the
away-ways?
little photos are little Polaroid cameras. Polaroid film's pretty expensive, so we don't just leave the cameras out here for people to take pictures with. But one of the things we've been interested in doing is when we see people out here making the masks, kind of snap a Polaroid of them and post it up. So for instance, you can see we have a little trio of kids here who made their masks together. So just, again, a fun way to kind of encourage people to see what other people have made. We can certainly talk to Grace about making those cameras available in some capacity for First Sundays, because obviously we'll have a lot of people making
The
them.
gallery guy could have one.
Perhaps,
those things are $1 a picture, so do not leave it out. Because they really do cost a lot. But it might be fun for a gallery guy who wants to.
And I'm thinking also, as you're speaking and we're thinking about numbers, we'll get one of our battery-operated sharpeners out here, so if the pencils need to be resharpened, that can happen. And we'll have a bunch of the masks out here, but if anybody who is here needs to replenish, it's in the classroom. There's a lower cabinet with a sign that says Gallery Upkeep. Open that and you'll see them in there. We probably did 100 yesterday.
Yeah, cool. At least.
And did you guys, are there any changes in the gallery theater that you've made?
So there are a few new-ish videos of the Artist Theater. I mean, new to relative to what's been in there. So one of our goals with the Artist Theater is to start trying to use more content that we're producing here on site. So some of the newer videos, you know, relative to what's been in there, we have Todd McGrain, the artist of the Lost Bird sculptures, talking about his pieces. The Lost Bird sculptures, if you're not familiar, are out at the museum entrance across from the porte cochere. Really beautiful work, so we have a video of him speaking in there. I think the old favorite, Showdown at Elktown is back, so that's a popular one that's back in there. If you hear like people screaming in the galleries, it's probably not video playing. And let's see, we have a couple of other new ones in there. So if you're not familiar with the Artist Theater, please go ahead and take a peek. We're going to be redoing the directions for playing those videos in there soon and things like that, make it a little more user-friendly, but please take a peek, and you know, you're welcome, obviously, too, to promote those to guests. We have some classics in there, the Bateman, and I think, oh, another one that's in there now is it's Bob Kuhn, talking about his kind of progressions in building a work of art. You get to watch the painting evolve over time. So it's really, really cool stuff in there. Thank you for mentioning that.
Nice.
And the Wayway movie will still be playing in the auditorium as well.
Oh, and then mention, Carrie, what's in Wapiti.
Yes. So in Wapiti, which is the space that's kind of separated from everything else down on the other side of Johnston Hall, we still have, in conjunction with Circle of Animals Zodiac Heads exhibition on the Sculpture Trail, we still have Full Circle, which is the informational component of that exhibit, lining the walls of Wapiti. And hopefully the next couple of days, we'll have some iPads in there where you can watch a video about Ai Weiwei and the making of the Zodiac Heads. And we'll also have a video, it's sort of I guess it's more of an audio piece, but where you can listen to the soundscape, the percussion soundscape that was composed specifically for the exhibit. Some of you will remember we had it playing out in the exhibit, but now that winter's here, we can't really have that equipment out there. So if anyone would like to engage further with, you know, the Zodiac Head.
So the movie that was in the auditorium, they're not showing in there anymore because I think the bulb blew out and it was too expensive to keep replacing it.
Okay.
So Grace has put that end of last week. She put that same video on the computer screen, and it's in there in the Wapiti. But what Carrie's saying is we're going to additionally bring the soundscape back, so they have the option of the video or the soundscape.
So what's going on in the auditorium then?
Nothing.
Oh, nothing.
Yeah.
And is what's going to happen to the soundscape?
That's a wonderful
Is it going to
question.
travel with the
Well, we
exhibit?
had hoped
You know.
so. The Ai Weiwei, the people in New York who we've worked with, the people that booked the exhibit, they have been super busy, and they haven't been proactive in telling the other venues that we have this. So I think it's going to be up to us, once we know what some of the other venues are, to contact them and say, hey, this is available, are you interested?
Yeah. And, you know, be sure to encourage people to go in and listen to it while it's still here through
January.
January, early January. Yeah.
And then, you know, with that in mind, we have those beautiful speakers that we are thinking of putting in the amphitheater area next summer, but we don't have anything particular in mind. So if anybody has any really good ideas what we should play in the amphitheater area next summer, that would be nice.
Cool.
Thank you,
everybody.
sorry.
Sorry.
So the last thing I wanted to show you all, again, some of you may be familiar with this, but we found it's been one of our most effective tools for engaging audiences in the galleries. It's in Conservation Gallery. If we could just pop in there for a minute, I'd love to show you that. And then we're going to be moving into the classroom, and Jane is going to share some of her tips for art making with us about how art can impact conservation. It's been a really wonderful interpretive piece. So I'd just like you all to be familiar with it so that you can encourage other people to use it. As you can see visually, this piece references the work Silent Messenger, this beautiful massive sculpture by Steve Kestrel. It's a very evocative piece. We learned from assessments of the gallery space that people were really drawn to this piece, and this was the piece they were connecting with. So in response to that, we developed an interpretive piece to help people kind of, you know, to help sort of facilitate that conversation. So as you can see here, a nice prompt to get people to show up is this bird dead or alive? But then we have some less crass type of conversation below that. So in addition to being able to, you know, hear a response to this question from the artist himself, Steve Kestrel, who's the center video, we also filmed 4 community members sharing their thoughts about the piece. So, you know, whether you're giving a tour, whether you're just kind of encouraging people to come in and explore the space, encourage them to use this if they want to hear some perspectives on this really powerful piece. And it's really easy to use. You just touch the one you want to hear, and then they talk to you.
Steve Kestrel. I live outside of Fort Collins, Colorado.
So, you know, each video fairly short. And then the way we've learned that this is so effective is we have folks filling out assessments, and we've gotten some incredible comments, and people really love this. So go ahead and encourage people to make use of this as well. They will definitely, I shouldn't say definitely, we're pretty sure that they'll come away from it feeling very inspired and interested in, you know, again, some of the bigger picture things of what can our collection and wildlife art say about ecological conservation.
Great.
So, does anyone have any questions before we move into the classroom?
Yeah, you guys have just done a fabulous work in the galleries, and it really, you know, again, to combat that comment by a local, oh, I've been there, I know everything that's going on. Probably not true, that they haven't engaged with everything that the education team has designed and created for the exhibits. So we really want, during our programs and events, want to support this fantastic work.
Cool. Thank you.
Should we go ahead and start? So this part of the training is about how to talk to kids about their own art that they're making and encourage them to do the best they can do and encourage them to have fun with it and not to, by all means, we don't want to discourage them. So what I'm going to say comes from my years of working as a school art teacher and then doing stuff here with kids too. But before I forget, this is the project that kids are going to be doing on Sunday. It's a paper bag puppet of a black-footed ferret. So remember Carrie pointed out 3 handouts, the ferret, the bison, and the prairie dog. Read the ferret, because it would be fun to talk to them while they're making their ferret, saying, did you know that at one time we thought ferrets were extinct in the whole world, but then they were discovered here in Wyoming? And it would be fun to know some of those facts about ferrets, to talk to kids and their parents as they're making their ferret puppet. But basically, what we have created a sample, that we have these brown paper bags, and we'll have some of them, we have for really little kids, the parts will be cut out ahead of time, so all the kids need to do is look at a sample and glue their pieces on. For others, they can cut out their own pieces and glue them on. So this is a fairly prescribed project. They don't have that much room for creativity, but in a lot of the projects we do here, they can do all kinds of different things with it. So what I'm going to be talking about probably applies more to projects that have more freedom, but it applies to anything really. Like if somebody gets their eyes, you know, a 3-year-old gets their eyes glued on down here, that's okay. You're not going to say that's wrong. You're going to say, oh, there's the eyes, okay. And let them do their own thing and let them have fun with it. But what I want to do to start with is just have everybody think for a moment about maybe an early art experience you remember, whether it was negative or positive for you as a little artist. Think about that, and then a few of us can share what we remember. One of the very first, when I was thinking about this, things that I remember was in kindergarten. This was back in Lexington, Massachusetts, and it was this lady who ran a kindergarten out of her home, and the kindergarten was in the basement. And one of the things they had for the kids to do was paint on an easel. And I remember telling her, I want to paint on the easel. And I remember her saying, well, yes, but you can't paint until you have the smock on, and I can't help you with the smock right now. And you have to wait till I come back, because you can paint, but you have to wear the smock. And then she went upstairs to her house, and what felt like to me she was gone for like an hour. Probably it was like 5 minutes. But I remember thinking, well, if all I'm waiting for is for her to help me put the smock on, I can do that. And I remember putting it on and tying it and picking up the brush and starting to paint. And she came down and she was so mad at me. I told you to wait, you're wrong. And it's amazing I ever wanted to paint again after that story, but I went on to study art and become an art teacher myself. But I never did that to my kids as a teacher. But what other experience do people have, either positive or negative, that you remember as an early art feedback when you were a child?
I kind of remember someone taking my piece from me and doing something to make it look right, and I'm like, you don't take my piece unless you ask, which I learned later.
Yes.
But you don't take someone's piece to help unless you ask them.
Yes, that's a really good one. I remember that from high school too. The high school art teacher taking my plein air pastel of a landscape and grabbing the chalk out of my hand and let me show you how to do the leaves on the trees here. Yeah, so good lesson to remember. You know, sometimes you say, you're trying to show them something and you might say, is it okay if I take the pencil and do a little sketch on the side here to show you? Or when I was an art teacher, I used to do it on scrap paper instead of write on the child's work. Or if I wanted to show them something on their work, I would sometimes flip the pencil around and make a mark with the eraser so you can see it faintly, but it's not permanent. But that's a really good one. Anybody else?
And don't you think, especially if in a First Sunday setting, we're not in school, we're not their art teacher.
They've got a parent.
We're not doing that, right? So even those goals and experiences are radically different.
Yeah.
We are not here to instruct them on a First Sundays. Right, very different
They're
than
here to
what
have fun.
Grace is doing a no school day workshop, and they're coming for actual instruction on a particular process or medium. But Sunday is about engaging and having fun, so.
You
we're
will
not teaching
sometimes
them.
see kids, which is related, they'll say, oh, can you do it for me? Oh, I can't cut, can you cut it for me? Use your own judgment on that. I mean, on a First Sunday situation, if a little kid is having trouble cutting, and it's not just about the cutting, they're trying to get to the arranging and gluing, I would probably help them cut. There are other situations where the art teacher feels funny doing anything for them. Or you might say when the kid's like, if they're too hesitant to do anything, like they're afraid to glue because they're afraid they're going to place it in the wrong place, say there's no wrong answer. Where do you want the arms? They don't have to be just like this one here. They can be sticking out to the side. They can be one up and one down. So they don't feel too intimidated that this is perfect and mine has to look just like that. So I would probably help with cutting with a little child, but I would with putting the pieces on, say, there's no right answer. You can put them on however you want. It doesn't have to look just like this. Anybody else have a story, good or bad, about whether you were encouraged or discouraged as a young artist?
Well, luckily the two areas that I always applied myself were writing and art, and so fortunately the formative years were more positive.
Positive, that's
But my first museum experience was actually in Manhattan at the Museum of Modern Art when I was really little, you know, probably first grade. And again, that was positive, but then it was the adults that I was with. There wasn't too much interaction about them. This has to be, bar none, the most sort of outgoing and receptive museum I've ever been in with regard to your initial contact with anybody, whether it was Maggie or John at the desk or a volunteer. You're pretty astounding around here.
Well, and Jane was an excellent art teacher. I copied her for years now. But she was our art teacher out at Kelly. And we just did the best things when she was there. And I used her ideas for years afterwards.
very nice.
Jane, I have two.
Yeah.
I had, as a third grader, I remember being criticized for coloring outside the lines.
Oh, yes.
So I stopped, I was like, oh, I don't like to color anymore. So I had the opposite reaction. It really intimidated me in terms of my art. And then much later in life, as an adult learner with E.J. Hirschfield, there was no wrong answer doing clay.
Yeah.
Everything was marvelous. So if anybody wants to see my later work, I do have one clay piece that I made with the tutelage of E.J. Hirschfield back when Center for the Arts, or
That's
the
neat.
CVAA was on Pearl Street.
That's
So
nice.
just opposite experiences.
Right. That's really good. I'm gonna hand out these tips about how to talk to a child about their own art. There's a great quote by Pablo Picasso on the top. It says, "Every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once we grow up." So I'm glad you could remain an artist, Becky. So basically, thanks for sharing your stories, those who did, because as you know, some of us have great memories, and some have memories of being corrected. So our job is not, especially at First Sundays, to correct anybody, but to encourage their natural art making as children. So go ahead and grab one of those and pass it along. And so there's just some good tips here that I want to go over really fast, and then I'm going to give each of you a piece of child art, and we're going to practice how to talk about it. That should be some fun here. But obviously always use respectful language. This is an interesting one. Don't overpraise. If you don't know the child especially, it might be tempting to walk up and just say, "Oh, that's fabulous. Oh, that's so great. Oh, that's terrific. Oh, I love that." Which isn't bad necessarily, but if kids hear that kind of a comment too much, they might start to not value it, like, "Oh, but it's not telling me anything. It's not encouraging me to make more art." In fact, that kind of a just praise without any substance behind it might make some kids afraid to keep going. It's like, "Oh, it's good now, but what if I wreck it?" And they might then want to step away from it. So there's some really good tips here for things to do instead of just that standard, "Oh, that looks great." And they are things like praise for doing, not for being. So you wouldn't say, "Oh, you're such a great artist," for example. That's being. Or, "Oh, that looks so great," or whatever. Instead, say things like, "Oh, what a great idea that you had there. You positioned the arms on your ferret out like it's giving you a hug. What a great idea." Instead of, "You didn't get the arms in the right position." So nothing gets in the way of creativity like fear of failing. So whatever you do, don't say anything that will make them feel like they could fail. You praise the process, not the product. So in other words, good things to say: "How did you do this? What an interesting shape. How did you blend those colors?" You wouldn't want to say, "That doesn't look like a ferret or a fish," or whatever. And whoever heard of a purple chicken? Those are examples of the wrong things to say. Definitely praise the effort. I had a chance to practice this past weekend. I went for a walk with Bronwyn, and Odin came out of the house with his Lego creation. This is Odin, is Bronwyn's son, who is 6. A Lego creation he'd made. And I was kind of in a rush to get back home and start to work on some stuff, but I caught myself. I didn't just say, "Oh, that's so great, Odin." I said, "Wow, that's really complicated. I love how many little pieces you were able to put together. That must have taken a lot of patience." And he's like, "Yes, it is very complicated." But praising the effort is important. You'll see some typos on here. I like the way you drew these, it's supposed to say strong lines instead of streamlines on there. Or it looks like you had fun with this. That's another good one. "Oh, it makes me smile. Your drawing makes me smile." It looks like you had a lot of fun with that. Those are all good things to say. Praise the imagination and the creativity. "What a great idea to paint the cat green," instead of, "I've never seen a green cat." Ask them what they like or think about their own work. Invite them to evaluate it. "What's your favorite part of this?" If they do a puppet like this, what was your favorite part? What part do you like the best? They might say, "I really like how I positioned the whiskers," or "I like how I made that one leg kicking out so it looks like it's about to start running." Might be a fun thing to do. Tips, open-ended questions, like "Tell me what you like best about this." It's open-ended. Or "Tell me about what you found what was the hardest part of creating this puppet?" "Ooh, the whiskers were so hard to get on there because the glue kept sticking to my finger instead of to the whisker. I had to reposition them about 5 times until I got them the way I wanted. That was really hard." Another tip would be, of course, if the parent would come with you. If a kid is making something and you say, "Oh, have you seen the ferrets in the artwork out there? Do you want me to show you?" And then you ask the parents, "Do you all want to come with me?" Or you might tell the parent, "Make sure when you go in the Monarchs of the Plains exhibit that you show them there are at least 2 works of art that I can think of that have black-footed ferrets. See if you can find them. I think there are two. There's one, let's see, one is the Burt Raines ferret that's over by the King and Queen of Dogtown, which is a prairie dog piece in the Bison Gallery, and the other is a Audubon piece, I think, which is by where the handout is that Carrie showed you for the bison, the prairie dog, and the ferret. So those are the two that would be fun to get and make sure they go in and check it out. I like this one. Right or wrong applies only to the use of tools and materials. So if they're using the wrong end of the glue stick, point it out to them. If they're using the scissors upside down and not having good luck with it, point it out to them. But if they're, you know, if they're smearing glue all over the front, I mean, who cares if it's messy? But, so there's no right or wrong way of making this ferret puppet. What not to say. Is it done yet? I don't know why that one's so bad. This was on a list of things I saw. Sometimes I'll ask, are you sure you're done? Is there anything else you might want to do? Try not to say, whoever heard of, or next time try to be tidy, or certainly don't say, let me do it for you. How to encourage a child to keep working. This is a hard one. Sometimes kids do it slapdash and they say, I'm done, and you wish they would put more time into it. A few helpful hints for that. Have you put in everything you want to show? Is there anything you forgot or left out? Oh, I forgot to put on the whiskers. Oh, that's it. Okay, you might want to add some whiskers. Ferrets do have really long whiskers. Or, oh, I forgot the nose. That's right. The sense of smell is really important to ferrets. They sniff out their food. Don't forget the nose. That's a really important thing. Do all the parts look like they belong together? For this project, that's not so relevant, but sometimes kids do things where something's done really carefully and something's done really in a rushed way, and you might say, yeah, it looks like, it doesn't all look like it hangs together. This part looks really carefully done, and this part looks more fast. Which part do you like the best? Why? Is there any part you're not satisfied with? With this, a kid might say, you know, I really don't like how I position the eyes. They're not like, one's higher and one's lower. Oh, well, you know, you could carefully try to peel one off. Do you want to try to peel this eye off and reposition it? If the kid says yes, then you might help them try to peel it off so they can reposition the eye so they are on the same level. Okay, so that's the fun part. Bob is so good about saving kids' drawings from the Children's Gallery that I have a whole stack. Everybody's going to get a kid's drawing, and we're going to practice what not to say and what to say to encourage them to keep going or encourage them to do more.
You can email. Okay, I'll do that. Because I was just thinking, next week, I'm sure you're leaving. Okay.
Did everybody get one? Here, Martha, you get one. And Claudette, you get one. And Carrie, you even get one. Everybody has one? Does anybody really dislike the one they got? Actually, I should make you keep it, because sometimes you really dislike what the kids are doing, but you never want to say that. So, let's first practice what you would never say. Maybe what comes to mind, but what you would never say out loud, you just say it to yourself. Bobby, one phrase that you would never say about that one.
Well, this one, he already, she or it, person, already said, don't judge.
Don't you?
I did it literally in 45 seconds because I didn't want to be left behind. Don't judge.
Oh, so you wouldn't say, that looks like it was done in 45 seconds.
No, I thought it looked really good. Quite often, though, they'll say, this is dumb, this is stupid, I'm not doing it.
That's true.
And they're down on their own work.
That's very true.
And I've had that happen so often with
And then what do you say?
Yes,
in
well,
response to that?
I think it,
You find some piece
Yes,
of it
right.
that you can praise.
Yes.
Is what I
Yes.
would do.
Yeah.
I would say, oh, but look how great the tail looks. The tail with its little kink in it and the brushiness on the end.
well,
It's
you got
just
the
like
hump
the
in it,
best
and it
tail.
looks, even though it's black and white, like it's lighter or darker, different
Right,
colors.
right. You
I
can
don't
always
know.
find something to praise. If a kid says, I hate it,
Yeah.
you can say, well, there's some really good aspects to that drawing.
I know, yeah.
And you can ask them, what don't you like about it? And they might say, well, look at the legs. You say, okay, well, how do you want to make them better? Do you want to show a joint in the leg? They look,
Yeah.
if you don't like how straight they look, let's go look at a painting of a bison and see where the leg bends. And Amy, what would you never say about that one? Of course, all these are fairly good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could see, being real literal, well, fish aren't by themselves, we're,
yeah.
other fish.
They're never all alone. That was like
Never
trying
all
to fish this in
alone.
a school.
Yeah.
That's good. What would you not say about that one, Jenny?
Well, since everything is brown.
Oh, right. You might say,
Yeah, the
I hate the
sky-
color brown. Everything's in brown.
Yeah, right, isn't the sky blue, not brown?
That's a good example of what you would not say. What about you, Allison? Anything you would not, what, can you think of anything you would not want to say out loud about that?
Well, the easiest thing would be to say, I've never seen a house that's all orange.
Right.
And, or you could say, what's this up here?
Right, what's this?
What is this?
That's a good one, I'm glad you said
Yeah.
that, because that's what ideally you're supposed to avoid. Instead, I would point to that and say, tell me about this part of your picture, is a good way to do that. Tell me about this. I've used that a lot when you're puzzled by, like, I have no idea what this kid is trying to show. Tell me about this. And they'll say, well, they usually go on to this 10-minute story about it, and then you get some insight into what they're trying to do. But then you could say, oh, this is a such and such, but you didn't add the ears. If you add the ears to the rabbit, I would really know it was a rabbit, something like that. Becky, anything you would not say about that one to people?
Well, I love it, but I really love it. I'm curious about how it occurred, did you do this all by yourself?
Yeah, you could ask something like that.
Because I mean, look at the difference. Look at the fish.
And then, what's going on here?
Scribbling in the
Yeah.
background. Right.
So did a
Seaweed,
parent
seaweed.
do this together with the
Okay, you
child?
could say that. You wouldn't want to say, you didn't do this all by yourself, did you?
Right.
But did you do this with somebody? Is a good question. What about yours, Ron?
Well,
You're right.
I'd have a hard time finding something to say negative about this. But I guess one thing you could say is to them, well, I really can't tell. What kind of a bear is it, a grizzly or a black bear?
Yes. Yeah. But instead of saying, I can't tell, you could say, tell me what kind of a bear this
Yeah.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
but it's boy, I wish I could do something like this now.
Well, that's okay to say. That's a good thing to say. I wish I could do something like that. It makes them feel good about what
Yeah,
they're doing.
absolutely.
What about the bird over here?
I think bird's having a bad day.
Wow.
It's an angry bird. Because it does have that downward arc.
Oh, right, right.
That's the only negative.
Yeah. And you could say, how's this bird feeling, to try to get behind, because maybe it looks angry to you, but maybe they didn't intend that, and maybe they don't realize that. They're saying, oh, this bird is like looking at some food and is really intently looking at some food. You say, oh, okay. Claudette, what